What's up and welcome to Ahead of the Curve. This is your host, Jonathan Gelner, and thank you so much for joining us today. This podcast is powered by Stick and Ball TV, the baseball and softball streaming platform. Stick and Ball TV is a baseball-focused streaming platform featuring the best coaches, players, and premium brands in baseball today. Stick and Ball TV creates and curates baseball training content, on-brand partner content, and original lifestyle content, and publishes globally across their web, iOS, and Android apps. Check them out at stickandball.tv or on the Stick and Ball TV mobile app. On today's show, we're back with Robert Woodard, head baseball coach at the University of Charlotte. On part one, we discussed his transition into the head coaching job and different rules and standards. But today, we're all about the in-season, or as he calls it, the on-season. So we discuss ramping up pitchers for the season, technology use, and what 9 ATC means. You're going to love this episode with Robert Woodard. Starting to, in the fall and getting ready for preseason, which gets ready for in-season and then, postseason as well. So tell us a little bit about that transition. So flipping the switch from off-season, what's different for you guys? Where do you guys focus? What are your time limitations and constraints? And then how are you getting guys ready from now until game one?
Yeah, so in our, we've finished our fall season here, so we're basically going from where we were 6 days on, 1 day off, 20 hours maximum per week, for 6 or 7 weeks, to where we're now starting tomorrow our third week of what we actually call it the on season. It's just a kind of a play on words, I guess, just to kind of make sure that we stay in the mindset that it's not the off season. We're actually we're in the on season here. And, so we're in our third week of that phase where we really we're down to, about 8 hours a week with the team, 5 days on, 2 days off. And we try to really, we've got some pitchers that they've done what they needed to do on the mound, and we're deloading them as far as their, as far as their throwing, sort of ramping them down before we ramp them back up. And we've got a group of pitchers that we feel like we really wanted to either work on an individual pitch type or an aspect of, or maybe multiple things. So we've kept them going. We've got, our position guys. We've got individual skill plans for those guys, whether they, what they need to work on and focus on, defensively or offensively or in the weight room and in their training. And so we're really just trying to kind of narrow the focus with each individual player in shorter bursts and give guys a little bit more time to kind of breathe on the weekends. And, I know we had a couple of guys that went with one of our players' families to Charleston, South Carolina for the weekend to go be together. I mean, this is the time of year where I think that stuff's really important. And I think it's really cool. I think that, so a little bit less baseball time, a little bit more training time in the weight room maybe, and a little bit more time with friends and family, so that when our guys get back in January, their batteries are charged and ready to rock.
No doubt. So backwards planning from your first game, from a pitching side, when do you guys really start to ramp it up? And, taking into account your audience, we've got pro guys, college guys, and a lot of people in the amateur ranks. So you're thinking teenagers to 22 years old. What would be your advice for a really good structured ramp-up plan?
Yeah, so obviously every pitcher is a little bit different, and it depends on kind of your workload for the previous calendar year or even longer. And so, for us, we kind of look at throwing a lot like running, from the standpoint that we don't want to build our guys up to this, this kind of peak physical shape in the fall where they're competing and building up pitch counts and that type of thing, and then just have them just drop off a cliff and not throw a baseball for a while. So we go through kind of like a deload phase or ramp down phase where, we kind of gradually like decelerate the car. And, I'd say right after Thanksgiving is where we really start kind of that ramp up phase again, where, we give our guys about 4 to 5 weeks building back up into long toss and pulling down and compression throws and, maybe even some velo type training to make sure that our guys are, our engines are primed and ready to rock to get back on the mound. And so we'll probably guys start getting back on the mounds really for like bullpens right around Christmas, either just after, and then guys will throw 3 or 4 bullpens at home on their own, really kind of, at their kind of comfort level. Again, each guy's going to be a little different place. And
Sure.
Obviously we're in close communication with our guys, via GroupMe or, we use Driveline track system to communicate a lot of our training here. So so we're able to kind of use those platforms to train our guys even remotely. So, so our guys get back from winter break, and then we'll get right into, kind of bullpens and pitch design type emphasis. Really make sure we're, working on those types of things along with holding runners and just kind of seeing where our guys are at for about 25, 30 pitches. And then we'll have a few live at bat sessions to kind of, again, take it up a notch where we'll actually have hitters in the box on the game mound. And, we'll put some base runners on for guys to get some reads. And then right at the last weekend in January, the NCAA allows us to start team practice. And that's when we get into scrimmages, and, our starting pitchers will be ready for about 3 innings or so that last weekend in January. And then we try to go about, adding an inning week by week until opening day. So our starters are ready for, 5 or 6 innings opening weekend.
Oh, great. I love that. You mentioned all the one of the things that I wanted to get into was the technology piece, because you guys have a ton of different things, and I think that's really neat. And I also know that there's a large part of the population who's like, if I inherited all that stuff, I don't even know what I would do with it. And so for those, and you could talk about hitting or just program philosophy, wherever you want to go with that. But you have all of this, the really cool stuff. And you mentioned Driveline track, the track system and things like that. But just what would be your advice on how to use it efficiently? And, we've got staffs of 2 and up to probably, I don't know, like whatever you guys have, 5 or 6, essentially. And so what have you guys found as your kind of sweet spot of, hey, we're going to use it for this, we use it to look at this, or just any advice you have on how to use it efficiently?
Yeah. So, I think a great place to start would just be to make we have a Google sheet, for our coaching staff. It's just a wish list. And we basically, so we'll make we have a long wish list that our coaching, all of our coaches, they put, I don't care if it costs $1 million or $100, just make a wish list of all the things you feel like, we need as a program to get where we want to go. And then we try to put a priority system on it to where, the most important thing, there might be 5 things that are the most important things that are like $100, $150. And then, so we're going to certainly try to go grab those things, right away, but then, on the flip side, the most important thing might be the TrackMan V3 unit, which is one of the most, one of the most expensive things that we've had to purchase from a player development side of things. And that took us a year and a half to get, to fundraise for and to install and everything. So, our goal when we got here as a coaching staff, July of 2019, was we said by opening day 2021, we wanted to have TrackMan installed into our stadium. So, we just made it a goal, and we tried to grab the low hanging fruit where we felt like we could and utilize it. And, again, we have tremendous support here from our former players and donors and alumni and administration to where, we just keep checking boxes off of the wish list. And, the thing I've learned is that it keeps growing. So, it really, we really never get to a place where the wish list is complete, unfortunately. But that's also the exciting thing too, is it keeps you sharp. It keeps you from becoming complacent. And I would just tell coaches at any level, just make a wish list of all the things that you think, are out there that can help your teams, and go for the low hanging fruits. Go for the, if it's one blast motion sensor, go get it. You don't have to be a team that necessarily has, a blast sensor for every hitter, or, if it's, let's just say, pitching, Rapsodo, if maybe you can't afford the pitching and the hitting. So, pick the one of the two that you feel like would really benefit your team the most. And then just kind of piece by piece, layer by layer, just collect all that, as much low hanging fruit as you can, and keep trying to slowly build. But that would be my my advice is if don't get overwhelmed by the fact that there's tons of things that we don't have that we would love to have, but we don't spend any time stressing over what we don't have. We just try to stay focused on controlling what we can control, which is a baseball message at any level. I think it applies, and so that's just kind of how we go about it here, and we feel like it's helped us progress, and hopefully it'll help to listeners out there that are kind of on trying to get some stuff going and some install with technology. Again, just don't worry for a minute if you don't understand something or you don't know how something works, or just understand, hey, I think I really want to use a piece of technology to help our players with this, and just jump in 2 feet first, trying to learn and embrace it.
No doubt. I love it. And you're someone who, it seems like you're very self-reflective, and you're consistently, by listening to you talk about, hey, we're not where we want to be, and we're going to continue to push towards that every single day. As the head coach, you've got a ton of stuff on your plate, but I'd love to hear, what are some of the things that you've dug into lately that you feel like has really made an impact? And when coaches are listening to this, there's going to be a lot of coaches who are either year 1, year 2, maybe year 3, like yourself, who are like, okay, I want to know what other coaches are digging into, and any advice or anything that you've learned lately, any epiphanies that you've had. But just, does anything come to mind of like, hey, this is something that I've been digging into lately, and I don't know where it is yet, or something that I've really learned that's really made a big impact on me?
Yeah, no, I don't know if there's necessarily one thing that comes to mind. I mean, it's a great question. But I would just say, as I get older, I've tried to become a better listener, and I've tried to really, I think as a head coach, I think, your initial sense is kind of what you said, is like, I've got, there's, when the day starts, there's so many things that, I need to do or accomplish, and that sort of thing. But, what I found is the more that I listen to, kind of my coaching staff is incredible, and the more I listen to my support staff, that's incredible, and our players who, they're changing our program on a daily basis with everything they're doing. The more I listen, and I feel like the more progress we make. And I think that's something that's probably very, maybe as a younger coach, I think I was maybe more eager to speak, or to to teach by talking or speaking. Whereas, as I've gotten older, I've tried to be a better listener, and I think that's maybe something that's helped our progress in the last few years.
No doubt. It's something I think we could all do a better job of. I know, myself included, I've actually mentioned that same thing, and it's not easy, but it's just like, slow down. Like, what, if we're not here for the person in front of you, then truly, what are we here for? And I love hearing you say that.
Yeah, it's something I have to work on, daily, because again, things can get really busy, and
Mm-hmm.
But again, it gets back to, I think I would recommend everybody. I think that there's a YouTube video out there with Buzz Williams talking to his coaching staff at Texas A&M when he got there, about again, concentrating on your stops versus your steps, because if you're building a bridge and you're just going across a wide gap, and you're not hammering the nails in on the boards on that bridge that's over that gap, you're going to look back, and that bridge is going to have boards falling off, and it's not going to be a sturdy bridge, and the people that are following you aren't going to be able to cross with you. And I think again, I'm summarizing, but I think that's spot on. I think just being very deliberate and intentional with, the things that you're focused on is pivotal. And because otherwise you're going to look, like I said, you're going to look back, and if you rush through conversations and you rush through tasks and you rush through, certainly practice and training, then you're going to look back and that bridge isn't going to be as strong as it needs to be. So,
sure.
I give a ton of credit to Coach Williams for, putting that message out, because that when I saw that right before I came to Charlotte, it was very impactful for me. And it's something I still try to, kind of think about at times when I feel like things need to slow down or are going too fast.
Sure. With the communication piece, I don't know. I've never been a head coach. It seems like good head coaches are really good communicators, or at least they're striving to be better at it. And listening is a huge one. But it sounds like you and your staff talk a lot. What have you guys found as a successful way to do that? And it may be ever evolving from year 1 to year 2 to the different staffs that you have. But I'd love to hear just the formula that you guys have settled on lately that has been effective for you.
Well, as a coaching staff, we have a group text that I have pinned at the top of my, my text thread, I guess. So, it's at times I feel like I'm probably the most active on that. So it's like there'll be times where, I think the guys I coach with are, they're I don't know, they're off doing whatever. But it's very active, like our coaches we're texting all the time with each other. Ideas, things we see out there that we think are good, things that we feel like we could do a better job of, things that, we're just always communicating as a staff. I'm sitting up here in the office right now overlooking our field at the stadium. And, one of the best things that we feel like we did as a coaching staff, with the help of our administration, is when I got here, our coaches' offices were across the street. If you can see, behind me over my right shoulder, there's, we've got a really nice field house, locker room, and but the previous coaching, Coach Hibbs and their offices were across the street. And, as nice as, maybe those offices were, I think moving our offices up here, having a little bit of separation from the players so they can have their space, but also having, we're here all the time. And for us to have the ability to be up here and drink coffee and spread out and talk. And, I've got stuff written on the windows behind me. You can probably tell a little bit. But, we don't have dry erase boards here. We have windows. So
that's great.
We write on windows all over the offices as far as just brainstorming everything from recruiting to lineups to upcoming schedules and events. And we just break stuff down and sometimes we all agree on things, and sometimes we get in these sessions where we're split or don't really agree, but we just, we all have this mutual respect where we all, we all can, communicate with one another and break it down in that front. And then from a program standpoint, I think Coach Fox at UNC, having played for him for 4 years and coached with him for 5, starting back in the fall of 2003 and all the way through the spring of 2019, 9 years playing and coaching with him. I saw him, he sent an email every single night to the entire program, basically from, when the guys were coming back in August through the season ending in June, every single night.
Wow. And that's crazy.
For 20 plus years, 20, 25 years. And, again, it's something that I pulled from him. And, so every single night I send an email, usually between, 6 and 9 PM, sometimes 9:30. It's usually the last thing I do when I leave the office, where I'll send an email to the entire program, coaches, players, support staff, and it'll have the upcoming, tomorrow's schedule along with the upcoming week or however long kind of see fit. And sometimes it'll be a short message. Sometimes it'll be a long message with some thoughts, but I'll send an email, every single night, just making sure that we're all on the same page with what we want tomorrow to look like and what we want to accomplish, and go from there. So
it's really good.
It's just something, again, it's something that I took from Coach Fox that I think, again, not, I think there's some newer school methods we have a group me for the team that I think most programs use. And I know there's programs that use Slack channels and those types of things, but I just think there's something to where, I think it's important for our players to check their school emails, which, you kind of take for granted as an adult. You look at your email all the time, but
right.
I think college students coming from high school, they haven't really developed that habit yet. So it gets them, it gets them in that mode of making sure that they're staying on top of checking their email. And then also it kind of gives them the freedom to look, to know that they're going to get, a message from me and what tomorrow looks like and some thoughts. And I send that every single night. And, we can talk about it a little bit more if you'd like, but you mentioned social media, and we always, we kind of our mantra within the programs, we play for the 9 across the chest, the 9 ATC. And so I send a nightly email. It says 9 ATC. And then, like tomorrow's will be 9 ATC 11:15. And, and then, tomorrow night it'll be 9 ATC 11:16. And so, it just kind of, it's just something that I really took from Coach Fox, and I saw a ton of value in. And I believe Coach Forbes at UNC, I think he does the same thing as well. I just think it's an aspect of it that helps a program run and kind of fire on all cylinders more when there's consistent daily communication.
Right.
Because schedules change. You can put a schedule. You can put a schedule in place, and we play an outdoor sport, or maybe there's weather rolling in at 4:00 and we need to move things up, whatever it may be. We've got recruits coming in. We want our players to know the names of the recruits that are coming in to visit, whatever it may be. I think communication's pivotal. And, I don't know if I've ever seen a coach communicate better, within leading a program than Coach Fox at UNC. So certainly try to take as much of that with me here to Charlotte.
No, I love it. And you hear coaches all the time talk about communication, and thank you for, digging into some of the different practical sides of being able to do that. I think there's a ton of different avenues, but I think that, if I was going to not grade you, but if I was going to say the constant communication, and then you talk about 9 ATC, like whenever I see that, now I'll know exactly what that means. And you guys are doing it constantly. And so it's not just something that's posted on a wall. It's something that is meaningful enough to you to include on a daily basis and to ingrain into basically the fabric of what you guys are building there. I love it.
Well, thanks. And, I'll just share, again, I touched on it earlier, but there's 3 coaches on our staff that grew up in Charlotte, myself, Toby Bicknell, and Tyler Simmons. And, this city and certainly the school, but this city means a lot to our entire coaching staff, but us in particular. And I just remember driving from Chapel Hill to Charlotte with my car packed up. I was making my second trip, 2 full carloads where I could barely, I think we've all probably moved somewhere and you just got everything packed in and you can barely move. And I remember I was pulling up to Charlotte. I was getting ready to get off on the exit, and I saw the skyline, and I just had this idea that, what are we going to, we've got to play for something bigger than ourselves. We've got to play for something, bigger than just wins and losses. And to me, I think this program, for us to be at the level we want to be at, we've got to play for the 9 across the chest in the city of Charlotte. That's what it stands for. So, the first 2 years here at Charlotte, I took responsibility and kind of came up with, what each letter in the city of Charlotte meant: character, humility, accountability, relentlessness, loyalty, opportunity, toughness, tenacity, and energy. And that's what, and then I defined each of those those words with what I felt like they meant and what I felt like should translate to our team playing on the field and how we carry ourselves, in the classroom and in the community. But then in talking with our coaching staff this summer, we all kind of got to an agreement that, hey, we don't think that each team should play for the same 9 across the chest. It's a different team. This year's team is not last year's team. So to try to avoid kind of, I think we've all, and I think everyone in athletics can tell you, I mean, there's, if you leave something on the wall long enough, you kind of stop reading it, and, if you got, so what we didn't want to happen is we didn't want the message to go stale or stagnant. And we didn't want to just assume that because, we had some success last year, playing for the 9 across the chest, that just all of a sudden it's got to be there again this year. I mean, this is a completely different team. We have, we brought in 26 players in a recruiting class that weren't, they weren't in the dugout for last year's team, and we returned 16. So, that did. But it's a completely different team. And so, yeah, we made the decision, a coaching staff, that, and we will, from this point on, each and every year, each team will get to define, what 9 ATC means to them.
I love it.
So our players, without really sharing, our players took some time and they delivered to our coaching staff what they felt like the 9 letters should represent. They defined it, and that's what it means to us. Cool. So that's what we play for, whether, what days that we feel great, days we feel just all right, and days we're tired, worn down, beat down, we're still got to get after it and play for those things that are bigger than us. So that's what really what the 9 ATC is about.
I love it. And again, that goes back to what we talked about earlier, which is giving back, and, your bumpers almost in the program, and you're just trying to keep them, between the lines and let it be their team. And you're being a consultant. Obviously you put the hammer down when you need to, but you're trying to give them as much a say and responsibility as you can, which I love that. And I think that coaches that do that are the best ones to play for, because you feel free, you take ownership, you have a say in things. And I'm sure you took that from Coach Fox whenever you guys play there. And that's what has progressed into why you are doing the same thing.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's great. So I've got 2 more questions for you, quick hitters if you want, before we go. Sure. The first one is you've talked a lot about giving player ownership and having them have a say in the program, which, again, talked ad nauseum about it, and I love it. But what are some different practical drills that they like, or like, say, I see you guys post some really cool stuff on social media, but if you were going to, put them all in a room and poll them on some of the favorite things that you guys do on a field, or drills or series or technology, whatever it is, what would a few of those things be?
That's a great question. I would say probably the fact that our players know that when they show up, they're going to be tested in a variety of ways every day. I think that's something when we look at developing a practice plan or what we're trying to accomplish that day, is we really don't want our players to show up every day and feel like, okay, it's we're gonna face front toss, we're gonna face a live arm, and we're gonna face hack attack, middle, with a hand on time every time. Right. Like because over time they're like, they're going to start to ace that test each and every day. Well, what's going to happen when you're facing, a guy that throws across his body or throws from really high, or a guy that has a nasty left-handed slider? So we try to, and I think Coach Sebahar really does a great job of from our hitter standpoint is, when our hitters show up each and every day, they're being tested from a variety of different looks on the hacks, and it's not easy. We talk about that in practice all the time. We talk about that as a team all the time. Is that practice is supposed to be hard, and your practice is supposed to be hard so that the game can hopefully become easier. And we're going to face a ton of different tests. I mean, we're going to face just in the regional alone last year, we faced, Gavin Williams, big, tall righty, downhill, high velocity guy who's, he's going to pitch in the big leagues probably for a long, long time. And then we ran into a lefty, Ramsey from Maryland, that just kind of had a little bit of a side slot plus slider, 2 completely different looks. And so we've we've tried to learn from that and just try to really say, okay, let's test our guys, let's give our guys as many different tests as we possibly can. So, I think on that front, I wouldn't say there's necessarily a drill in general. I would just say just that our guys know that they're gonna be tested every day they show up at practice, and if they pass these tests, that they should head back to the locker room at the end of the day knowing that they got better and that they're more ready for the game because the game's really hard. And so that's probably just a general response, but I also think too, one thing I've learned is, I think it's pivotal for coaches to train, from a defensive standpoint as a team. I think, if you go one, because your players are coming from all over the country, they haven't played together, right? So they need to get acclimated, in team defense and drills and those types of things. And you need to run through as many situations as you can to where they all come together and they can think for themselves. But also, just the general travel ball dynamic is there's not a ton of practice, or they're in a facility and they're not on a diamond practicing together, running through tandems and relays and first and thirds and situations and those types of things. So we try to really push the envelope and go fast and run. And we do a lot of like situational defense type of work with our guys and make sure that they're a cohesive unit on that front. So I think the more that you can, do those things, test your guys in a variety of ways, get them comfortable being uncomfortable, and then getting them play as a cohesive unit. I think those are things that are very valuable.
Really good. And the last one I've got for you is, if you had to leave, you get the opportunity to leave our coaches with just some advice. And so if you have some listeners who are listening to you for the first and only time ever, and you wanted to leave them with something that's really helped you with your career, and you mentioned the Buzz Williams quote, I mean, just anything like that, or you could be a book or just advice you got from Coach Fox of whatever it could be. But you get this one opportunity to share with them something that you find impactful. And what comes to mind?
Gosh, that's a great question. I would say probably two things. Would be the first thing that comes to mind is my first year coaching. I worked a camp up in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I was fortunate enough to kind of get to work alongside Ron Polk, longtime legendary coach. Literally wrote the book on college, the baseball playbook. And he and I were riding to the airport together in a car, and I asked him. I said, Coach, this is my first year coaching. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, if you had a piece of advice for me, what would it be? So I'll share with the audience what he told me. He said, Woody, be yourself. He said, don't try to be something you're not. If you try to be something you're not, then your players are going to see right through you. And that's always really tried to stick with me. Because I think we all have coaches that we admire. I think we all have coaches that we, respect and we emulate. But at the end of the day, I think that advice has really helped me, I don't want to say be successful, but be more at peace with the result.
Sure.
Like when things don't go well or we don't have success, at least at the end of the day too, when you've kind of been yourself and you've done things in a manner at which you're proud of and the results happen, then that's certainly great, but they don't, you're at peace with them. And I think it's helped me have a better relationship with my players. At least I would hope so. So, I would share that advice, just because again, when if Ron Polk's going to give me advice, then I'm going to listen.
Sure. I guess I got one more for you, a follow up to that one. So you got the chance to work for one of the most fantastic college baseball coaches ever. Did you ever feel like you had to fight the urge to, when you got the job, to be more like him? Because I've gotten the chance to work with some really, really good head coaches, and I want to take bits and pieces from them, like you mentioned, and put them into my personality. And lately I've been reading the newest Patriots book, It's Better to Be Feared. And all of Belichick's assistants tried to go and implement everything exactly like him. and they all, like, I don't think any of them have had much success. And so that's kind of stuck in my brain lately. And I don't think that you have done that, but I had wondered if you had to ever fight that urge.
Yeah, I would say a little bit. I mean, I think there's some times where, there's maybe some things or standards that, again, maybe I've tried to, kind of instill that these are standards or things that Coach Fox instilled. So I have to do it here versus, kind of, I think it's important to be able to read the room. And, sometimes when you read the room and it says, hey, look, this is, our team here, this 2022, Niners baseball team, this isn't the 2012 UNC team. This isn't the 2006 UNC team. So you can't coach them as such. And there's there's going to be crossovers. There's going to be, certainly some standards that I think are, again, we talked about them earlier, that are non-negotiable. But I think you have to have the ability to read the room and recognize that this team, whichever team it is, wherever you are, at whatever level you're coaching, I think you need to be able to read the room and say, yeah, I know this worked last year, or I know this worked in previous years, but my gut tells me that this team needs a little bit more or a little bit less of this, whatever this is. And you've got to be able to, I think, as a coach, to be able to adjust and read the room. And I think that's really important. And it does, I would, getting back to, kind of the Belichick and the assistant coach reference. I mean, I don't think any of those assistant coaches had Tom Brady as their quarterbacks. So
That would be helpful.
I think, I think that would certainly enhance their chances if they did.
No doubt.
But yeah, you've got to be yourself, getting back to Coach Polk's advice, and you got to be able to read the room and not wait until next season to make an adjustment. I think long time college baseball Hall of Fame coach Augie Garrido said coaching is not looking back and second guessing. Coaching is looking forward and seeing what's coming and adjusting before something happens. And I've always tried to take that with me too. And I think being able to look through the windshield and see what's coming is far more important than looking in the rearview mirror and saying, well, this worked in the past, it should work in the future. That's not necessarily the case, in my opinion.
Thank you for listening to Ahead of the Curve. If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving us a rating or review wherever you are listening. I also wanted to remind you that you can find the video portion at the AOTC channel on stickandball.tv. Have a great week.